I sat in the lawyer's office, hands trembling as I watched my parents walk in. They hadn't spoken to me since cutting me off at 18, but today they sat front row for Grandpa William's will reading. They whispered to each other, not bothering to hide their excitement about our $5 million. The lawyer cleared his throat and read, "To my grandson Chester, I leave my entire estate valued at $5 million." Their smiles vanished instantly. They sat frozen faces, pale as statues, while I struggled to process this unexpected gift from the only person who truly believed in me. Before I tell you the whole story of how my grandfather's last act of love changed my life forever, let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. You'll want to see how this family drama unfolds. Growing up in the Anderson family meant understanding one thing: from an early age, appearances and money mattered above all else. My father, Gregory, was an investment banker who measured success in portfolio values and country club memberships. My mother, Diane, complemented his ambition perfectly, hosting elaborate dinner parties where conversations revolved around property values and stock options. Our 6-bedroom colonial house in the most expensive neighborhood was a testament to their priorities. From my earliest memories, I was taught that wealth accumulation was the primary goal in life. My father would quiz me about investment concepts before I could even tie my shoes. "Chester," he would say, "the Anderson name means something in this town. We are not ordinary people who work paycheck to paycheck." Amid this cold atmosphere of status and materialism, Grandpa William was my sanctuary. My father's father, he had made good money in his younger years, but lived modestly in a simple 3-bedroom house across town. While my parents attended charity galas primarily to network with influential people, Grandpa actually volunteered weekly at the local homeless shelter and donated to causes he believed in. Every Saturday morning from when I was 7, Grandpa would pick me up in his weathered pickup truck for fishing trips. Those quiet mornings on the lake provided the warmth missing from my home life. "Chester, my boy," he would say, while baiting my hook, "remember that true wealth is not in your wallet. It is in how you treat others and the difference you make in this world." My parents tolerated these outings, but regularly expressed disapproval of Grandpa's lifestyle choices. "Dad is so irresponsible with his money," my father would complain after Grandpa left. "He could be living in a much better neighborhood if he was not throwing his money away on those charity cases." I remember one Christmas when Grandpa gave me a handmade wooden tackle box instead of the expensive electronics my parents had gifted. While they exchanged disappointed glances, I treasured that box more than anything because Grandpa had spent weeks crafting it for me. The contrast between my family home and Grandpa's house was striking. Our house, while impressive with its marble countertops and designer furniture, felt like a museum where I was afraid to touch anything. Grandpa's modest home, with its comfortable worn furniture and walls covered in fishing photos, felt like somewhere I could breathe freely. As I grew older, I found myself increasingly torn between my parents' expectations and the values Grandpa quietly demonstrated. My father would lecture about prestigious colleges and lucrative careers, while Grandpa would ask what made me happy and what problems in the world I wanted to solve. When I showed interest in environmental issues after a school field trip to a local watershed, my parents dismissed it as a phase. Grandpa, however, brought me books about conservation and took me to volunteer at tree planting events. These experiences planted seeds that would later shape my life path in ways my parents never anticipated. My senior year of high school became a battleground between following my parents' carefully planned path or pursuing my own interests. I maintained a 4.0 gigapascals, was active in extracurriculars, and received acceptance letters from several prestigious universities. My father had his heart set on me attending his alma mater to study business finance, following directly in his footsteps. But during those years of fishing with Grandpa and exploring the outdoors, I had developed a genuine passion for environmental science. When I received an acceptance letter from a university known for its excellent environmental program, including a partial scholarship, I was ecstatic. This program combines field research with policy development, I explained to my parents over dinner one evening. Graduates go on to work on real solutions for water conservation and sustainable development. My father put down his fork and looked at me as if I had suggested becoming a street performer. Chester, we have discussed this. Business school then. MBA. Then you join my firm. Environmental science is a hobby, not a career. But Dad, I can make an actual difference in the world. There are serious environmental challenges that need solutions. The difference you should focus on is in your bank account, he replied coldly. No son of mine is going to waste an education on tree hugging. These arguments became increasingly frequent as decision day approached. My mother alternated between trying to bribe me with promises of a new car if I chose business school and emotional manipulation about disappointing the family. Through it all, Grandpa William remained my quiet supporter. You have to live your own life, Chester, he told me during one of our fishing trips, not the one someone else designed for you. The tension came to a breaking point during a formal family dinner. My parents had invited several partners from my father's firm, clearly planning to announce my acceptance to the business program. When asked about my college plans, I took a deep breath and stated clearly that I would be majoring in environmental science. The silence that followed was deafening. My father maintained his composure in front of his colleagues, but his eyes promised consequences. Later that night, after the guests had left, he delivered his ultimatum. You have two choices, he said, voice eerily calm. You go to business school as planned, or you are cut off. No tuition, no allowance, no car, no support of any kind. If you insist on throwing away your future, you will do it completely on your own. My mother added, We have invested 18 years in raising you properly. We will not fund this rebellion. Despite the fear churning in my stomach, I stood my ground. Then I guess I am on my own. The next morning I woke to find my father changing the locks on the front door. My mother had packed a single suitcase with some of my clothes. My car keys had been confiscated since the vehicle was in my father's name. My father handed me $200 cash. This is more generosity than your decision deserves, he said. Do not come back until you have come to your senses. When Grandpa William heard what happened, he immediately offered me his spare bedroom. My parents intercepted him in the driveway before he could even reach the front door. You have always undermined our parenting, Dad, my father said, loudly enough for neighbors to hear. If you help him now, you can forget about seeing us again either. Caught between his son and his grandson, Grandpa was forced to retreat, but not before giving me a look that conveyed both apology and determination. As I walked away from the only home I had ever known, my mother's final words echoed in my ears. As far as we are concerned, you are dead to us. That first night of homelessness remains vivid in my memory. I slept in the back of a friend's car, curled up with my single suitcase, staring at the ceiling, and wondering if I had made a terrible mistake. By morning, my pride had given way to the practical realities of my situation. I needed affordable housing, a job, and a way to pay for college. My first apartment was barely habitable, a studio in the worst part of town, with cockroaches that seemed immune to any repellent and pipes that leaked whenever someone flushed a toilet upstairs. The monthly rent consumed nearly all of my initial $200, leaving me with the urgent need for income. I found work washing dishes at a local diner on evenings and weekends while taking a morning shift stocking shelves at a grocery store. Between jobs, I attended classes full-time, often functioning on 3 to 4 hours of sleep. My meals consisted primarily of ramen noodles and whatever food was about to expire at the grocery store that employees could purchase at steep discounts. Despite my parents' threats, Grandpa William found ways to meet me secretly at a small coffee shop halfway between our homes. He could not offer me a place to live without severe family consequences, but he slipped me small amounts of money disguised as payment for non-existent odd jobs. Your father checks my bank statements, he confided during one of our meetings, but I have been keeping a cash fund for emergencies. This qualifies I later learned that Grandpa had secretly established a modest college fund for me years earlier, which he now anonymously directed to my tuition payments. It was not enough to cover everything, but combined with my partial scholarship and exhausting work schedule, it kept me enrolled. The contrast between my new reality and my former life was jarring. While struggling to afford textbooks, I would occasionally see my parents dining at expensive restaurants when I bussed tables at a downtown establishment on weekends. They would look right through me as if I were invisible. The holiday season brought its own unique pain. As Christmas approached during my freshman year, I saw posts on social media of my extended family gathering at my parents' home for their annual lavish celebration. I spent that Christmas eating a microwave dinner in my tiny apartment, trying not to think about the warmth and tradition I was missing. By junior year, the relentless pace nearly broke me. I developed persistent headaches from lack of sleep and proper nutrition. During one particularly difficult finals week, while balancing 30 hours of work with studying, I nearly collapsed in the university library. Dr. Patterson, my environmental policy professor, found me with my head on my textbook, fighting tears of exhaustion. Instead of simply expressing concern, she took action, connecting me with campus resources I did not know existed, and eventually offering me a position as her research assistant. This role paid better than my previous jobs and related directly to my field of study. "I see something special in you, Chester," she told me. "Your perspective and determination are exactly what this field needs. Let me help you the way someone once helped me." Through these hardships, I discovered a resilience I never knew I possessed. The friends who let me crash on their couches during the worst times became a surrogate family. The financial aid officers who helped me navigate scholarship applications became my advocates. Even the diner manager who made sure I always got a free meal during shifts became part of my support system. Each small kindness reinforced what Grandpa had always taught me, that true wealth could be found in community purpose and perseverance rather than material possessions or status. After 4 grueling years, graduation day arrived. I had maintained my academic standing despite all obstacles, graduating with honors in environmental science, with a specialization in water conservation. As I sat among my classmates in my rented cap and gown, I scanned the audience, knowing my parents would not be there but hoping against reason. Instead, I spotted Grandpa William, now using a cane, but beaming with pride. He had told my parents he was visiting an old friend to create an alibi for attending my ceremony. When my name was called, I heard his distinctive whistle above the general applause, a sound that had once accompanied our fishing victories. After graduation, I secured an entry-level position at a nonprofit focused on protecting regional watersheds. The salary was modest, but sufficient for me to finally move into a slightly better apartment without roommates. More importantly, the work aligned perfectly with my passion for environmental protection. Over the next 3 years, I gradually advanced through dedication and innovative thinking. I developed a community-based water monitoring program that gained attention from larger environmental organizations, which led to additional funding for our nonprofit and a promotion for me. During this time, I made several attempts to reconcile with my parents. I sent graduation announcements, holiday cards, and even a letter detailing my professional progress. These overtures were met with either silence or brief formal responses, making it clear that nothing had changed in their view. My choice of career path remained unforgivable. Grandpa William continued to be my connection to family, though our meetings remained secretive to avoid conflict with my parents. His health began to decline, but his spirits remained high, especially when I shared stories about my work. "You are making a difference, Chester," he would say. "That is worth more than any amount in a bank account." As I established my independent adult life, I began dating someone who appreciated my values rather than my family background. Taylor understood my passion for environmental work and supported my career choices, a stark contrast to my parents, who had seen my decisions as disappointments. My life settled into a pattern that, while not luxurious, felt authentic and purposeful. My modest one-bedroom apartment contained secondhand furniture, but also shelves of environmental texts and walls decorated with nature photography. I drove a reliable used car rather than the luxury vehicle that might have been mine had I followed my parents' plan. Yet I felt a contentment that I suspected was missing from their materialistic lives. The call about Grandpa William's hospitalization came on a Wednesday morning. His housekeeper found him unresponsive and called an ambulance. By the time I reached the hospital, he had stabilized, but the prognosis was not good. At 84, his heart was failing, and the doctors spoke in the gentle tones reserved for delivering difficult news. I immediately requested time off from work and began spending every possible moment at his bedside. My parents visited briefly. Their conversation focused more on practical matters than Grandpa's comfort. I overheard them in the hallway discussing their share of Grandpa's estate, speculating on property values and investment accounts. During the quiet hours when we were alone, Grandpa shared reflections on his life and values. "I have watched both generations of my family make their choices," he said one evening, his voice weaker but his mind still sharp. "Money is necessary, but it is also a test of character. Remember that, Chester." He made mysterious comments about setting things right and true inheritance, which I attributed to medication and fatigue. I focused instead on making his final days comfortable, bringing his favorite books to read aloud, and arranging old fishing photographs around his hospital room. My parents appeared more frequently once they learned that Grandpa had met with his lawyer to update his will. Their sudden interest in his comfort felt transparent and hollow. During one visit, my mother actually brought fabric swatches, casually mentioning her plans to refresh Grandpa's house once it became convenient. When Grandpa passed peacefully in his sleep, with me holding his hand, the loss felt immeasurable. At his funeral, my parents networked with wealthy attendees while I accepted condolences from Grandpa's fishing buddies, shelter volunteers, and community members who shared stories of his quiet generosity over the years. "Your grandpa paid for my daughter's emergency surgery when we had no insurance," one woman told me, wiping tears. "He never wanted recognition, just asked that we help someone else when we could." Another man, roughly dressed but dignified, approached me at the reception. "I was homeless when your grandfather gave me a job at his hardware store in the 90s. That job saved my life. Now I own my own small business and help others the way he helped me." These tributes painted a picture of my grandfather that expanded even my understanding of his character. While I knew him as loving and wise, I had not fully comprehended the breadth of his quiet impact on the community. 2 weeks after the funeral, we gathered in Mr. Harrington's wood-paneled office for the reading of the will. As Grandpa's attorney for over 40 years, Mr. Harrington had a grave dignity that suited the occasion. My parents arrived late, dressed expensively, offering me a dismissive nod before taking seats in the front row. "Let us get this unpleasant business finished," my father said briskly. "We all have busy schedules to maintain." I sat quietly in the second row, expecting little. Grandpa had given me something far more valuable than money through his love and guidance. I assumed his modest assets would go to my parents, which seemed natural despite their behavior. Mr. Harrington adjusted his glasses and began reading. The first portions of the will designated donations to the homeless shelter, conservation, trust, and other charities Grandpa had supported during his life. My parents shifted impatiently, exchanging whispers I could partially overhear, just small bequests before the main inheritance and our $5 million. The figure surprised me, as I had never thought of Grandpa as particularly wealthy. He had owned a successful hardware store before retiring, but lived simply. Apparently, he had been a shrewd investor over the decades, building a substantial portfolio without changing his modest lifestyle. And now, to the residuary estate Mr. Harrington announced, drawing my attention back. To my grandson Chester, I leave my entire remaining estate valued at approximately $5 million. The room fell silent. I stared at Mr. Harrington, certain I had misheard. My parents sat completely still, as if frozen in time. This bequest, Mr. Harrington continued, is made in recognition that Chester embodies the values I hold dear: integrity, compassion, and determination in the face of adversity. My father recovered first. "This is preposterous," he sputtered, face flushing. Dad was not in his right mind. Chester obviously manipulated him during his illness. Mr. Harrington raised his hand. I anticipated such concerns. William prepared for this reaction. He turned to his assistant, who set up a small screen and projector. He recorded this message 6 months ago when he was in excellent health and had just passed his cognitive assessment with his physician. Grandpa's face appeared on screen, familiar and dear. "If you are watching this," he began, "then I have passed on, and my will has caused some consternation. Let me be clear that this decision was made with full faculty of my mental capabilities, and after years of careful observation." He explained how he had watched both generations make life choices reflecting their values. "Gregory and Diane," he addressed my parents directly, "you chose material wealth over relationship with your son. You discarded him for following his conscience rather than your ambitions. In doing so, you revealed yourselves as poor stewards of true wealth." My grandfather's eyes seemed to find mine through the screen. "Chester, you chose purpose over comfort, integrity over convenience. When tested, you revealed strength of character that makes me prouder than I can express. I leave you my financial assets, knowing you will use them with wisdom and compassion." He finished with one condition: 20% of the inheritance must go to charitable causes of my choosing, continuing his legacy of giving. As the video ended, my parents looked shell-shocked. The smug expressions they had worn upon arrival had transformed into masks of disbelief and anger. The aftermath was immediate and volatile. My parents stormed out of the attorney's office, my father shouting about contesting the will and my mother in tears. I remained seated, unable to process the dramatic reversal of fortune that had just occurred. "Is this real?" I finally asked Mr. Harrington once we were alone. "Very real," he confirmed, sliding a folder toward me. "Your grandfather was worth more than most people knew. He was an exceptional investor who lived well below his means. This portfolio breakdown shows his holdings, properties, and liquid assets. I spent that night sleepless, staring at my apartment ceiling, much as I had that first night after being cut off. The inheritance represented freedom, security, and validation, but also responsibility and potential complication. By morning, I had more questions than answers about how to proceed. My phone began ringing early with calls from my parents. After years of silence, they suddenly had much to say. Their initial threats of legal action evolved within days into attempts at reconciliation. Family should stick together, my mother cooed during one call. "We have all made mistakes. Why not come for dinner this weekend, like old times?" I accepted their dinner invitation, partly from curiosity and partly from a lingering hope for genuine reconnection. Their home was unchanged, still immaculate and impressive, though I now viewed it through different eyes. The dinner conversation was a masterclass in pretense, with no mention of the past years of estrangement. "We always knew you would find your way," my father said, refilling my wine glass. "This inheritance is really a family blessing. Your grandfather would want us to use it to strengthen family bonds." Their transparent attempt to access Grandpa's money might have been comical if it were not so sad. Their suggestions about helping manage the family money and pooling resources for better investment leverage grew more frequent as the evening progressed. I excused myself after dessert, declining their invitation to stay longer. As I drove away, I felt an unexpected sense of liberation. For years, I had carried the weight of their disappointment and rejection. Now, I recognized that their approval had lost its power over me. I had built a life based on my own values, and that life stood on its own merits. Their lawyer sent threatening letters in the following weeks, claiming undue influence and diminished capacity. Mr. Harrington assured me these had no legal merit given Grandpa's careful documentation and video testimony. When their legal avenues failed, my parents attempted manipulation through family, friends, and distant relatives, all suddenly concerned about my well-being and financial decisions. I established firm boundaries, making it clear that while I remained open to genuine reconciliation, any relationship would not include financial entanglement. This position effectively ended their renewed interest in my life. In the months that followed, I worked with financial advisors to create a responsible plan for the inheritance. Beyond Grandpa's required 20% charitable giving, I allocated additional funds toward environmental causes he would have appreciated. I established a scholarship program for low-income students, pursuing environmental science degrees, remembering my own struggles to stay in school. The first recipients included a single mother returning to college and a former factory worker retraining after his plant closed. The nonprofit where I worked had long wanted to implement a comprehensive water conservation project for rural communities, but lacked funding. I provided a grant that allowed us to launch the initiative while remaining a regular employee rather than leveraging my new financial status for advancement. My housing situation changed modestly. I purchased a comfortable 3-bedroom home in a friendly neighborhood, similar to Grandpa's house in spirit, though updated for energy efficiency. No mansion, no status symbol address, just a place where I could put down roots and possibly start a family someday. When my parents' lawsuit was formally dismissed by the judge, they made one final attempt to manipulate me through my mother's cousin, who called with health concerns and financial troubles that only family money could solve. The transparent ploy confirmed that nothing had fundamentally changed in their approach to relationships. I realized then that wealth without values truly is empty. My parents had everything society tells us we should want, yet remained grasping and dissatisfied. Grandpa, who had possessed significant wealth all along, found joy in simple pleasures and giving to others. Expanding on Grandpa's charitable legacy became my passion project. I established a foundation in his name, focused on environmental education and community support. In his old neighborhood, we converted a vacant building into a community center offering after-school programs, job training, and a food pantry. I also quietly helped friends who had supported me during my hardest times. For the roommate who let me sleep on his couch during a brief period of homelessness, I paid off student loans. For my former diner manager, who ensured I never worked hungry, I provided funding to renovate his aging restaurant. These actions brought unwanted publicity with local news covering the secret millionaire story. While uncomfortable with the attention I used the platform to promote causes Grandpa would have valued, and to highlight the work of small environmental organizations making big differences. 2 years after receiving the inheritance, I found myself reflecting on how life had and had not changed. Financially, everything was different. I had security, opportunity, and resources I never imagined possible. Yet in many ways, I remained the same person with the same values. I still drove the reliable used car I had purchased before the inheritance. Though I could afford any vehicle, this one served its purpose perfectly well. I continued working in environmental conservation, finding purpose in the daily effort to protect natural resources for future generations. My relationship with Taylor had deepened into something solid and meaningful. Having known me before the money, Taylor loved the person, not the inheritance. Together, we committed to using resources responsibly, supporting causes we believed in, and building a life centered on purpose rather than accumulation. Occasionally, I received updates about my parents through mutual connections. Their financial situation had apparently deteriorated after years of living beyond even their considerable means. The economic downturn affected my father's investments, and their lavish lifestyle proved difficult to maintain. After much consideration, I arranged for anonymous assistance through Mr. Harrington's office. Despite everything, they remained. Family and Grandpa would have wanted me to help if I could. They never knew the source of the investment opportunity that helped stabilize their finances, and I preferred it that way. The framed photo on my desk from my last fishing trip with Grandpa remained my most treasured possession. No amount of inheritance could replace the true wealth he had given me through his love, example, and belief in my potential. The lesson he taught me about true wealth being found in how we treat others and the difference we make guided my decisions daily. The freedom to pursue meaningful work without financial stress was a blessing I never took for granted, having experienced the alternative firsthand. When I received the Environmental Leadership Award for our watershed protection program, I silently dedicated it to Grandpa. His final act had not simply been about leaving me money. It had been about entrusting me with continuing a legacy of purpose and compassion. Each day I strived to live in a way that would make him proud, finding joy in simplicity, connection, and contribution rather than status or accumulation. The inheritance changed my circumstances, but the values that guided me through hardship continue to guide me through abundance. Have you ever experienced someone believing in you when others did not? How did that change your path? Share your story in the comments below. If this tale of values and vindication resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about life's unexpected turns. And if you know someone who needs a reminder that staying true to yourself eventually pays off, share this video with them. Thank you for listening, and remember, the true measure of wealth is not what you have, but who you are and how you use what you are given.